Today on Locked On Cooley, we get to talk about the final gift given to us by Connor Garland. That is Dylan Guenther. Get into it.
You're Locked On Coyotes, your daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the show, everybody. This is Locked On Coyotes, number one daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes. I am your host, Robyn Leonio, alongside Matthew Jacobson. We want to thank everyone for making this show your first listen every day. We are free and available everywhere you get your podcast, including on YouTube and on the SiriusXM radio app. We got a great show for you on today's episode. We are talking realistic expectations for prospects. Today is Dylan Guenther, a great prospect for the Arizona Coyotes, drafted in the top 10 of the 2021 NHL draft. It's a big one. It's a big episode, Matthew.
Yes, indeed. It is a big episode because I, at the very least, get to shoehorn in a Connor Garland reference because the final gift he bestowed upon us was the 9th overall selection in 2021. I remember at the time, and I want to reiterate it because I like to make things about myself. Connor Garland is what got us Dylan Guenther. Oliver Ekman-Larsson was exchanged for Louis Eriksson. So Ollie gave us one good thing, and that was King Louis. That was a great meme. A lot of money I wasted on that jersey. But Connor Garland gave us the gem. That is Dylan Guenther. And this kid, consistency needs to be worked on just to get ahead of that. I think we all accept that, but he has an NHL level shot, and this kid was too good to be in the WHL last year. What are your thoughts on this?
Oh, 100%. Dylan Guenther looked pretty darn good when he was playing for the Coyotes. Honestly, he surprised me in the fact that he played past the games to not burn a year of his EOCs, and he started to say it, but after I saw him play more, I'm like, okay, he can't get something down. He's just too good, and he kept playing pretty well. He kind of like flamed out a little bit, I think, in December of last year, but he looked great, right? He still looked good for his age and for what the part of the development that he's supposed to be in. When they sent him down, it made sense, though. I'm like, okay, it makes sense to send him down because he needs to play meaningful games. The Coyotes are trying to tank the rest of the season, or at least trying to, because they still ended up winning games, surprisingly. They're going to try to tank the rest.
They don't know how to tank.
Yeah, but they're going to try to tank the rest of the season because they start to improve their draft position, and games like that in tanking just would not be good for Dylan Guenther's development. So they were going to send you back down to the Seattle Thunderbirds, which, by the way, yes, I know he was on the Edmonton Oil Kings the previous year. There was a trade that while he was on the Coyotes, where he's like, oh, yeah, the Oil Kings trade his rights over to the Seattle Thunderbirds. So he played for the Seattle Thunderbirds, got sent back down there, and he just freaking looked too good. He is too good for the WHL. That is, he's too good for the CHL as a whole. You just cannot have him there anymore. He belongs he belongs in the league.
Not as an everyday NHLer yet. That's my hot take. But ultimately, I do not think he's a full-time NHLer yet, but he will have time. I just want to note real quick before I spend the majority of segment 2 in excruciating detail going over all this kid's games, because we actually have a prospect we can look over their games at the NHL level, not just everything else. He had 6 goals and 9 assists last season, so nice, first and foremost. Secondly, is a little bit of his career before this. So for the Oil Kings in 2020, 2021, as an alternate captain, 12 games, 12 goals, 12 assists, 24 points. ridiculous. World Juniors, 7 games, 4 goals, 3 assists, 7 points. For the Oil Kings, the season where he gets injured in the tournament, but they do win the WHL championship. 59 games, 45 goals, 46 assists, 91 points, adding another 13 goals, 8 assists, 21 points in 16 playoff games. He's put together so many really good campaigns. And obviously 2019, 2020, 58 games, 26 goals, 33 assists, 59 points for the Oil Kings. But he put together some good consistency over those couple of seasons. Then he comes to Arizona. 33 games. He makes the opening roster. They keep him on the roster long term. They burn the first year of the ELC, but not a year of RFA rights. But 33 games, 6 goals, 9 assists, 15 points. And he has a solid overall year, but they elect to send him down. I think it was shortly after the World Juniors where he was a goal per game again. 7 games, 7 goals, 3 assists, 10 points. Seattle, 20 games, 13 goals, 16 assists, 29 points. He was ticked off. He was on a mission, and then another 16 goals in 19 games, 28 total points in the playoffs. Dylan Guenther was not happy about the
playoffs, by the way. It doesn't include the Memorial Cup.
Yep. So Dylan Guenther was angry. Dylan Guenther took it the way you should, and that is, I'm upset, but I'm going to prove that you shouldn't have done that. And did we talk about the gold medal goal yet? I don't think we talked about the gold medal goal. Dylan Guenther has kind of done like a little bit of everything this last year. Forced his way onto the roster, have a revenge tour, gold medal in the World Juniors. This kid is we forget about him as a prospect a little bit because of Logan Cooley. I will admit, here on Locked On Cooley, it's like that meme where you're with the girl, but the guy's looking at the other girl. All right. That other girl is Dylan Guenther, all right? Or sorry, it's Logan Cooley. Where was Dylan Guenther? We had Dylan Guenther first. I got it confused. I'm a little excited, all right? But the upside this kid has, the NHL level shot, it's just consistency, and I think he'll probably play around half and half between AHL and NHL, because they're going to struggle to have a consistent role for him on this team. They got too many NHL level players, which is a good thing and a bad thing. So he'll have to be really good to make the roster outright. I think he's just been good this training camp, not really good. So he might still not make the roster out of training camp. Not a knock on his game, just they added too much depth.
We're going to continue this discussion as we get to realistic expectations for Dylan Guenther in the 2023-24 season. All that and more on today's episode of Locked On Coyotes. But first, a quick word from our sponsors on today's show. Love the convenience of getting what you want right to your door? With DoorDash grocery delivery, you can stock up for the week or order last-minute cravings conveniently. You've trusted DoorDash to deliver your restaurant favorites, and now you can get grocery delivery that delivers too. With thousands of grocery stores to choose from, you'll find the best in your neighborhood and boost your local economy with each and every order. You get exactly what you ordered, and we'll make it right. So sit back and enjoy quality groceries like you picked them yourself. Want even more value? You can save on all your groceries and restaurant favorites with a $0 delivery fee on all eligible orders with a Dash Pass membership. I can personally vouch for one of those. I am a Dash Pass subscriber myself, with easy substitutions right in the app and best-in-class customer support. DoorDash delivers groceries exactly how you want it. Get 50% off your first DoorDash order up to a $25 value when you use the code LOCKED at checkout. Check limited time offer. Terms apply. Once again, that's 50% off up to $20. No minimum subtotal and $0 delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store and enter the code LOCKED. All right, Matt, let's continue. And there are a couple good points you made about Dylan Guenther. And in terms of his NHL level shot, I feel like as a ceiling, this kid can very well be one of the best pure goal scorers that we're going to see on the team. As a ceiling, again, I think because his shots there, I feel like he still needs to refine a little bit more. You're right. I feel like, I think because of all the depth, he may not make the final roster. Maybe he will, but I do foresee him spending most of it, at least of this season, with the Tucson Roadrunners. And that's not a knock on him. Again, as you mentioned, that is not a knock on Dylan Guenther at all. It just shows of how much the Coyotes have improved over the last year.
Yeah, because you're either going to force him on the second line in a role that I just don't think he is quite ready for everyday NHL. He is an NHL level player. I do think he belongs in the league, but everyday NHL is a little different from NHL caliber. It's just a little different, and there was a little bit of streakiness. I actually have all of his games right here because I decided to pull this up. He only in 3 of his 33 games did he play in less than 10 minutes. So for the most part, he logs decent minutes, but none of them he logged 20. So he's not going to be he at least was not forced to be relied upon. But his first game gets an assist against Boston. Scoreless for a couple back-to-back. He gets a goal against Ottawa and Columbus. Scoreless against Winnipeg. Couple of assists against New York. Assists against Florida. Scoreless for 4 games. Drops off 1 goal. Drops off another couple games. 2 assists. Drops off 2 assists. 5 games, no points. Goal and assist. Couple games, nothing. You have these gaps, and that's natural to an extent. Like if this is a depth player or a very young player, you're going to see gaps. So you want them to work on the consistency, work on that production per game. At the AHL level, this kid should be a point per game. And considering the whole Michael Carcone is going to leave behind there, Gunner, Donor, to an extent, maybe guys like Tyson, some of the veteran Roadrunners down there, going to have some ability in the top 6 there to score some goals. Why not let Dylan Guenther go wild in the top 6 down there where he will be against equal talent is not the way to say it, but he's definitely going to be closer than it was at the WHL level without forcing him against the best of the best when he might not be quite ready. And then when he builds that consistency, he ends up playing half here, half there. Next year becomes an everyday NHLer.
Let's add another aspect to this, another dimension, so to speak, Matthew. The Arizona Coyotes in the last several years have been known. I think what's the term that's been tossed around here? They've been known of overcooking.
Yep, GMBA loves overbaking
players in the AHL to make sure they don't miss a beat, and to make sure once they make it to the NHL, they are not just ready, but they are gonna come out flying. Mm-hmm. That's what happens when you spend enough time in the AHL. Take a look at the history of the Coyotes and the Tucson Roadrunners and how just AHL to the NHL and any level like that. In terms of if we look at that, the Tucson Roadrunners always tend to build up a player enough, at least 1 or 2 players who can not only lead the team but lead the freaking league in points, right? Take a look at before Michael Carcone, I think the team leader in points was Michael Bunting, right? But technically it was Michael Bunting. But you take a look at what Connor Garland did. He was a man amongst boys in that team. Michael Carcone did so well to Tucson Roadrunners. But those are players who were drafted later. We're looking at a player like Dylan Guenther, who already has a lot more than either of those players had to start their careers in the AHL. His overcooking isn't going to take long, but he will season really freaking well. And by the time he makes it to the NHL, I feel like he'll get really darn close to that ceiling that we expect him to see.
Yeah, because he doesn't want to rush his prospects. I think Doan might also be a pretty good example of this, where he took the college route. He's looking phenomenal so far. They're going to have him play in the AHL regardless. He'll get his cup of coffee, but he's not going to be an NHLer this year. They're going to let him bake whenever he comes. Like you said, that he's going to be completely NHL ready every year. I want to bring up the stats because there was something to this. So I want to have everything in front of me because Connor Garland obviously kind of forced his way up to the NHL because Connor Garland was that good. But the leader in points for 2018-19 was Lane Peterson. He was good. Was it Braden Burke the year after, which is weird. That's a weird it's a weird thought. Kevin Roy, leader in points the next year. Then you have, I think, with Matthias Pacelli. Then last year it's Michael Carcone. They constantly are switching out. No matter what happens, they are constantly breeding the next player at that level that's going to fill right in. Boom, here's your production, kind of without skipping a beat. And they overbaked guys like you could probably consider Garland somewhere around like the properly baked, maybe a little overbaked because they were very heavily sheltering the minutes. Michael Bunting was very overbaked, immediate NHLer.
He didn't get his rookie year until how old was he? 25?
Yeah, he's barely younger than I am now. When he got his rookie season,
he's our age around. So like,
don't say that. He's almost 30. Don't say that, Robyn. Why would you say that? You know what? Here's a word from our sponsors while I have an existential crisis. Still having a crisis.
Still having a crisis.
But Carcone coming out of nowhere, and they find a way to keep doing this, and not just someone has to lead the team, but they step up and they score kind of above and beyond most of the players in the team. And the standouts obviously have to be guys like Garland, Bunting, Maccelli, Carcone. Those are your immediate standouts, and those are also all going to be either our NHL talent or going to be NHL talent, because I genuinely think Carcone is going to be a consistent NHLer this year. But you're not going to see the kind of scoring because he'll likely be bottom six. But if he gets top 6 minutes, you'll see some flashes because the guy is good. Can't call him a kid. He's almost 30. My God, get all the oldies out of here. All right, get all the old people out of here.
Oh God. Let's get back to Spicy Dill. Right. Let's get back to Spicy Dill.
There's only one Spicy in this state, and she plays for the Mercury. It's Spicy Sophie only. Anyway, continue, Robyn.
No, I will not. I will not give to that. Spicy Dill is Spicy Dill.
Spicy Dill sounds too sexual, Robyn. I don't like calling him Spicy Dill.
I don't care.
I feel like I am some sort of predator calling a 20-year-old kid Spicy Dill. I'm not going to do it. I refuse.
Hey, Patrick Brown even calls him Spicy Dill.
Patrick Brown gets a pass because he is a family man, all right, and he is ridiculously nice and wholesome, all right. That man couldn't hurt a fly. I can throw a rabid dog at him, and he'll try to pet it.
You love that dude. Anyways, before we get too sidetracked, Dylan Guenther, actual expectations for this year. As we mentioned, spend most of his year in the AHL. I believe he will be the team's MVP this year in the Tucson Roadrunners.
I actually think that's an unrealistic expectation because I think he's borderline going to be 50-50. I think if there's injuries, he gets called up, especially if it's a top 6 injury. So when Nick Schmaltz misses 20 games this year, Dylan Guenther immediately gets a call up and he has a top 6 spot because you call up what you need essentially. So I feel like it's going to be pretty close to 50-50. Maybe not quite. He will play in Tucson for the playoff push. If Tucson makes the playoffs, he will play on Tucson for
but look, remember what MVP stands for. When that playoff push comes around, his value will be. You cannot underestimate the value that he will add to the Tucson Roadrunners come playoff time.
As a pure goal scorer, 100%. However, he's not going to have the games played to generate the stats. And you obviously got to have the stats to back it up as well. But in the context of that pure goal scorer, that could essentially be the difference between Tucson having the extra manpower to get those extra wins to go to the playoffs and not, Dylan Guenther. Straight up, Dylan Guenther.
Give me a stat line.
This is actually the hardest stat line because Tucson plays 72 games, right? I thought it was 67, but it's like 68 or 72.
68 before the Pacific Division expansion, having added Henderson and Coachella. Now, because it is like a freaking essentially a whole ass conference, it's a 72 72 game season like everybody else.
I think he will play about 30 to 35 games in the NHL. His stat line will be similar. He had 15 points in 33 games last year, so he'll have about 12 goals, maybe close to 8 assists, around 20 points. The points per game will go up, is what I'm trying to communicate. And then he'll play, that would equate to roughly, depending on what time of year, like 40-ish games he'd be available for Tucson. Kind of somewhere in there.
Well, keep in mind if you call Dylan Guenther up during the week, most of AHL games, a couple happen during the week, but most of AHL games happen on a Friday and Saturday on the weekend. So he could theoretically be available for significantly more AHL games if he only gets called up for a very short period of time. If the Coyotes, if it's during the week, like on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday game.
That's true. So let's say you got a guy that's out day to day. You can call him up for the Tuesday game. Maybe he plays the Thursday game as well and then goes back for Friday, Saturday, or whatever, or Saturday, Sunday.
Let's put all things into consideration. Let's say maybe he plays 54 games.
I'll be more conservative and say 40 to 45, just to be safe, because I do think he'll get that 30.
Let's compromise at 50. Let's compromise at 50.
You can compromise at 50. I'm going 45. But I think he'll be a 20-goal scorer in those 45 games, because with how head and shoulders he was above WHL talent, and that was the top WHL talent. The AHL, the worst AHL team can beat the best WHL team. That's not even an argument. He'll be against guys that are not as good as him offensively, but might be fringe NHL kind of guys. 20 goals should be doable. He's not the biggest passer. I think he'll always have more goals than assists in general, or he'll usually have more goals than assists in general. So let's say 20 goals, 10 assists, 30 points.
That seems pretty fair. I probably would give him a few more goals, maybe. Mm-hmm. Give him like around the 25 to 30 mark, maybe, because I do give him those extra games.
Okay, but if he does get the extra games, maybe.
And then I'd say about I'll stand firm with you at around like that amount of assists. So that puts him around like a 35 to 40 point season, something like that, right? So
I don't like how that thing just fell in the corner of my office. But no, I think that's reasonable. He's not gonna I don't think as he gets higher in competition, because the Oil King season where he had 91 points in 59 games was ridiculous. For Seattle, 29 points in 20 games, ridiculous. He might even be closer to a point per game at the AHL level than we're giving credit. But I also professionally only have that NHL 33-game stint last year to compare. And he hasn't blown me away so far this training camp. Again, he's been good, just not great. And that's why I'm maybe he's going to...
One of those games against the Toronto Maple Leafs, who, by the way, have not beat the Arizona Coyotes in how many years?
Was it like 15? It might have been 20. I'll have to fact check that one.
It's been a while. I mean, I'm not sure it's been that long. I mean, at home, yes, but in terms of just like overall, I think it's been a couple years.
It's because Toronto sucks. Anyway.
Yes.
Dylan Guenther. My intuition has to be a little more conservative on this one, and it's Gunter is going to be between the two leagues. Not quite a point per game at the AHL level, but he could be closer than I'm giving credit for. And his points per game at the NHL level, because it was about 0.50 last year. I think it was slightly lower, like 0.49. Will be a little higher, and he'll build a little more consistency throughout his stint.
So, I guess a safe a safe way to say it in terms of realistic expectation is expect Dylan Guenther to be a reliable, true quadruple A player this year.
I like that. Yeah. Literally think as close to Michael Carcone if Carcone wasn't as good at passing. Because Carcone can pass. He's a decent passer. And Guenther, he does pass, but like his big strength is that shot.
That's fair.
Kind of like how Matias Maccelli, the next one we're going to talk about, has a really excellent pass. He has a really good shot, but he chooses not to use it.
Matias Maccelli is different, and we will get to Matias Maccelli on the next episode of Locked On Coyotes, so you'll definitely want to stay locked in. But do you have any final thoughts on this episode before we close things off?
We are not calling him Spicy Dill until he hits 25.
We are 100% calling him Spicy Dill. I will gladly call him Spicy Dill.
When he hits 25 years of age, I will call him Spicy Dill.
Have you seen the hashtags? It is Spicy Dill.
Nope. The only, as of right now, the only spicy in Phoenix is Spicy Sophie of the Phoenix Mercury.
We'll agree to disagree on that one.
Agree to disagree. No Spicy Dill.
Anyways, that's going to be it for today's episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. If you like what you heard, don't forget to leave a review, like, comment, subscribe if you've yet to already. We're available everywhere you get your podcast, including on YouTube and the SiriusXM radio app. Don't forget to interact with us on social media. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/LockedOnCoyotes, and on X at LO_Coyotes. 1X, as Matt is showing gratefully on our YouTube video here.
I will not stop saying that every episode.
I am personally at Robyn_Leonio. My Jackson is at the AZ Sports Guy. Interact with us, ask a question you might have. We might answer right back or on a future episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. Thanks again, everyone, for listening to today's episode. Hope you guys are staying safe out there. Hope you guys are staying healthy. And don't forget to howl on.